And here we are on a Sunday morning. It's Father's Day, the first full day of summer. Joe Chaffee and Joe Rayo on the Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show. I am live from Marietta, Georgia. I'm sorry, the sun is actually. Hold on, I got to figure this out. Hang on a second. And Joe Rayo's back home where he's always in the Hudson Valley. So hang on, Joe.
Hello, everybody. Happy Father's Day to you all. And I have a brand new computer, Joe. And interestingly, I see the screen here, the YouTube screen, and the chat board much larger than with my old computer. So
So there's a
there,
plus right there.
there is a plus right there. How about that?
And I am this is my last day here. I'll be on the road tomorrow, so there'll be no live show tomorrow night. Not that there's anything really going on, and hopefully,
Well, but tomorrow night, maybe we'll just run this show for tomorrow night.
well, listen, the weather isn't going to change it very much in the next 48 to 72 hours anyway, so
Well,
we
it's
could
it's
probably
it's
get away with it.
it's not the heat; it's the humidity here. We had temperatures yesterday here in Putnam County, where I am, got up to 88 degrees yesterday, and it almost felt like 88 degree dew point temperatures. It was very very humid to go along with the heat. Not a drop of rain. It got rather dark here yesterday afternoon, but all the thunderstorms apparently decided they were going to stay to the west of the Hudson, and
And
that was pretty much the story yesterday. And it may very well be the story again today.
well, meanwhile, this has been a really strange week up and down the East Coast because I've been referring it to it as basically upside down weather, and it's I think this is the third time that we've seen this since May, where the temperatures up in northern New England, particularly in Maine, where they were setting all-time record highs in some places and getting up close to the century mark. The temperatures there have been far hotter, although not necessarily all that humid, but certainly far hotter as opposed to the mid-Atlantic and particularly heading down through the Carolinas and into where I've been in North Georgia, where I spent most of the week in low humidity, daytime temperatures in the low to mid 70s, nighttime lows in the low to mid 50s. I mean, it was really just an incredibly delightful week here. Skywise, it wasn't necessarily picture perfect because we had some clouds. It was kind of like a day, Joe, in the late winter, early spring in terms of the sky condition because we would get
Oh,
with the upper
Richard,
low, we got the instability clouds. It would go overcast, and then there was a one day where we wound up with a couple of afternoon downpours, and then once that happened, it went to mostly sunny. It really was. I wound up picking a very good week to come down here because it hasn't really been that bad.
yeah, and in fact, on Friday, the National Weather Service in Caribou, incidentally, when you were talking about the blueness of the sky, I said a richer kind of blue that you
Yes.
would see in the late winter as opposed to the kind of hazy blue that you normally tend to see during the summer months. But in Caribou, Maine, on Friday, they issued a special weather statement that they had tied the all-time record high in Caribou at 96, but they had a disclaimer. They
Right.
said our records only go back as far as 1939,
Right.
and meanwhile, there are other places like Millinocket and up in portions of northern and central Maine where the records went much further back. And in fact, they brought up one particular case, I think it was in Millinocket, where it got to like 102 degrees in 1935. And they said, in all likelihood, Caribou was probably at or above 100 that day too, but we simply do not have the records to back that up. So this 96 has to stand as the hottest temperature recorded in Caribou, but still 96 degrees while you're down in Georgia enjoying relatively low humidity and temperatures in the 70s. Boone, North Carolina in the 60s. It's been crazy. And I actually said something to the effect on Facebook. Maybe the folks up in northern New England or even in Quebec, Canada, are probably yearning to perhaps go to a cooler spot like
Like down south.
Georgia.
Yes. I will say this though. One of the things, I'm a huge follower of the concept of the trend being your friend. And when you discover a weather pattern that you're in a situation where it's repeating, it's likely to continue to repeat until it finally ultimately breaks down. When that is, you don't know, but it's always wise to kind of go with the flow, in a way of putting it. So what I'm wondering now, we've had this happen a couple of times, several times, as I said, since mid-May. We it's probable to say that if the trend is your friend, that you might see this repeat down the road as you get into maybe uh, August and September. And I call attention to that because of the fact that if we do wind up seeing it repeat, then where you have higher pressures up along the say from the northern lakes through southeastern Canada and through northern New England, and upper lows or part of the jet stream that's going to want to drop down into the mid-Atlantic and southeast, that could be, that could be a little bit of a red flag come tropical storm season if there's something off the East Coast. Now, I'm not predicting anything's going to be there. I'm just saying that, if we're going to wind up with an upper air like what we have right now, or what we just had, when we get into the heart of hurricane season, it will be something that we'll have to pay attention to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was thinking back to other years. I remember in 1999, in much of the eastern United States and especially up in eastern Canada, it was exceptionally hot. I think we had something like 19 days in July at Central Park where the temperature hit 90, and a couple of days it hit 100. And what was 1999? Come September, we had a tropical system by the name of Floyd. And that really did a number on the tri state area, especially up in the Hudson Valley. I remember places in the Hudson Valley getting something like 12 to 16 inches of rain in a matter of just a few hours'
Hmm.
time. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to repeat again this year, but the very thought that we might be going into a more sultry, hotter weather pattern as we move into the end of June and into July. Now, John, I'm wondering what your thoughts are. My son is going to get married on the official 4th of July holiday, which I don't understand is a Friday, July 3rd. And that's just a week from this Friday. And I've been telling him and his fiance, my future daughter in law, that boy, you picked quite a week because I think that week we're going to see perhaps some of the hottest temperatures that we've seen around here
Yeah.
in 4 years.
Yeah, it does look like the pattern's going to get hot after next weekend. I was looking at the long range over the runs over the weekend, and yeah, it does look like right around the 1st or 2nd of July, you're going to flip back into a ridge position. What looks like a ridge position on both coasts, and the jet does retreat into Canada. So yeah, he's definitely picking a hot weekend. The 4th of July is one of those holidays where they don't really, you can't really move the date because it's the date. The 4th of July is the 4th of July.
Correct. Correct. I
Everybody, I
think that
guess,
this
is,
year, this year the holiday is being celebrated on
well, in
Friday the
terms of
3rd.
people getting taking the day off, it'll be on the 3rd, but all the
Right.
celebrations will be, as they should be on the 4th. But yeah, so he's going to do it on the hottest day of the year. So I'm assuming hopefully he will be doing it in an air conditioned environment.
Well, the catering hall that we were going to have the event, and we will have the event next year after hopefully COVID-19 is behind us.
Right.
They said, yeah, come on over. You can have at least a ceremony there. Unfortunately, the ceremony will not be indoors in air conditioned comfort. It'll probably be somewhere outdoors. So
Right.
we'll be all standing there, and
So
I'm hoping
you're going to have it at your venue. It's just going to be a small circle of people.
it's going to be a very small circle of people. I
I
mean,
could certainly show up with a fire hose if you'd like, and just,
well, you're literally,
because
well,
I'm a
you are
stone
literally,
I'm a stone's throw away. Either that, or I could
right,
ride my bicycle and
yeah.
just sort of wave as I go and yell as I go by and be generally obnoxious.
Oh dear. Well, anyway, that's how as far as perusing the maps, that's my opinion that it is that we're heading for. I mean, this week we'll be dealing with more in terms of humidity than heat,
Yeah.
although I think we can hit 90 inland where I am for a day or two during this week. But I mean, the really hot weather looks like it's going to hold forth. I mean, it looks to me like a huge ridge of high pressure is literally going to inflate from the Great Lakes and southeastern Canada across New England beginning again, as you mentioned, around July the 1st. And to me, just eyeballing that tells me that it is going to get quite a bit hotter here.
All right. So let's run through the weather. There is really not a whole lot happening, but where there is stuff happening is big in the plains today. from Oklahoma on up into Kansas. Mr. Rayo, the Storm Prediction Center has enhanced risk of severe weather, slight risk going all the way up to Minnesota and covering the rest of Oklahoma, and marginal risk goes even further north, and also an area of marginal risk in parts of Kentucky and in Tennessee. The tornado risk today is interesting enough, a fairly large area of 3%. That's a three. I usually thought they went with two, but apparently that's a three. No, it's a two. I'm sorry. There's a speck. I got a lot of dirt on my computer screen that I need to clean. But no, it's a 2% probability in the green. I thought maybe they were doing something new, but two areas of 5%. In Nebraska, eastern Nebraska, westernmost Iowa, also in southernmost south central Kansas, north central Oklahoma. We've gone through a recent period where severe weather has been kind of on the quiet side, and you can also see, by the way, in terms of the potential for destructive winds, area of 30% being indicated. And as far as the next couple of days are concerned, for Monday, it's a slight to marginal risk in Oklahoma into parts of Missouri, Arkansas, and western Tennessee. We are in an area of general thunderstorms. Tuesday, we're looking at marginal risk from East Texas across northern half of Louisiana, much of Mississippi and Alabama. General thunderstorms up and down the East Coast. Also, small area of marginal risk in parts of New Mexico and southern Colorado. I was thinking maybe, I mean, it was still a little bit far off, Joe, but late this week, the way the upper air is shaping up, looks like we'll probably have some kind of cold front get close to us on late Tuesday or Wednesday and just sort of get hung up again. And then we'll have to wait till a second front, maybe late in the week, to move on through. And perhaps there might be some showers and thunderstorms with either one of those fronts. But I'm just thinking maybe with the second one, the upper trough looks kind of interesting when it moves through. So maybe there's a chance that we could get into a little bit of severe action late this coming week. Just some early speculation on my part.
Right, and that cold front, or actually that second cold front, is about the best we're going to be able to do to bring in maybe a bit of a dent in the humidity department and slightly cooler air.
If
In
only
this
for a
type of
day or so.
Yeah, well, in this type of situation, beggars simply cannot be choosers. We'll take that, but unfortunately, that's going to be pretty well squelched when the new wave or new round of heat, a new round of humidity, and especially heat heads our way at the beginning of the following week, which again will be the beginning of July.
Yeah, not a lot of rain forecast over the next 7 days, particularly along the immediate coastal plain. We're talking about a quarter of an inch or less. So, at least from the standpoint of the WPC people, they're not really overly enthused by what's happening, and neither am I, quite frankly. Bigger rains down in the southern plains and in Texas and in parts of the central Gulf states, the southeast, on the semi-quiet side after dealing with this upper low for the week from Virginia to South Carolina, getting a little bit of a break there. Rains up in the upper Midwest from Iowa northeastward into Wisconsin and the western lakes, about a couple of inches worth. It looks like most of the west coast is dry. There's nothing here, Joe, that stands out to me. It's not like we're dealing with any kind of tropical systems coming into play. This seems to be just pretty much spot on with the calendar in terms of the kind of weather we're seeing and going to see going forward.
Do you have access? If not, I don't need to see this, but of the watches and warnings nationwide right now
Yeah,
for
hang on one second.
I
Let's.
have a reason for asking that. One of my very good friends on the astronomy side. I've known him as long, actually a little longer than you, Joe. Dr. Glenn Schneider, who's an astronomer at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and he emailed me last night and showed me photographs around his home. He is surrounded by literally a ring of fire, and he said if it gets any worse here, I'm going to have to, get a go-to bag and evacuate.
Yeah,
I'm
they
just
they don't
curious.
have any red flag warnings up there up for there. They have, in fact, there's on the other side, on the New Mexico side, they got a lot of counties with dense fog advisories.
Hmm.
And also up in California, we have excessive heat watches up through central and northern California away from the coast, but they're not really showing very much. I'll pull up Tucson's week ahead forecast. So these are the forecast highs for Tucson. Their 7 day high temperature forecast.
Well,
Wait
he's
a
pretty
minute.
well used.
I'm trying to understand this. They have a 7 day high temperature forecast graphic. They have four of them, and all four of them. Oh, those are different. Okay, I see what. Okay, so for Tucson, 105, 106, 108, 109, 109, 108, 108. Those are the highs for the next 7 days.
It's not new to him. When we were having our snow and unseasonably cold weather in early May, if you remember. He sent me an email saying, "Send some of that here." And it was when I sent him the email. For him, it was already mid morning, and mid morning it was already like 89 degrees on its way to a high of 102. So I guess by now he's pretty well used to this.
Right.
But it has been very dry out there, along with very hot. And even my wife, I mean, Renata was saying this morning after I told her about Glenn, she said, I always get worried when we have very dry weather because we're surrounded in a wooded area,
Right.
and all you need is just one ash or hot, something just to, you know, like a hot ash out in the woods somewhere, and it'll go up like a tinderbox.
Well,
We've
you
been
know
doing
what? You
something.
bring that up. The drought the drought prediction boys and girls have they're starting to show parts of the Northeast as being dry. Uh, I saw one of their maps the other day. I don't have a time to really bring it up now, but maybe I'll bring it up on Tuesday when we're back. But they are starting to show parts of the Northeast as being on the dry side. I've got the satellite loop up, and it's kind of interesting if you look off the coast east of Delaware and southeast of Cape Cod. There is a developing low here, and you can actually pick out the circulation center. Clouds surrounding it to the northeast and northwest. They're all offshore. But the Hurricane Center actually mentioned this as possibly acquiring subtropical characteristics in the next 24 hours before it goes on its merry way to the northeast. Now, this is something that, this is from the pattern we just came out of. So I'm just, again, going back to what I said earlier. If we see these, sort of upside down patterns where you wind up with an upper high, and this is how the upper air looked a day or two ago. The upper high over New England, northern New England, with the big heat there. The upper low sitting in the western Carolinas. So you depending on where that position of that upper low is, if it's a little bit further to the west and you've got a southerly flow along the east coast, this again poses an issue if you do wind up with some kind of tropical system somewhere off the southeast coast. Again, all of this speaking in theory, but I'm just whenever I see a situation you start to see weather patterns repeat, you have to pay a little bit of attention. And meanwhile, you could also start to see here we are at 11:22 Eastern time, and we're already starting to see some blowups of some showers and storms in looks like in parts of Oklahoma and Texas, and we also have a disturbance that's moving out east of the Mississippi River now and moving into the Ohio Valley. And just checking out the latest radar there. We'll give it a fresh up. There's nothing to look at here as far as the Northeast is concerned. We've got some downpours and a couple of thunderstorms in western Kentucky and down into Indiana. And looking at some rather strong cells now dropping southward from Oklahoma into North Texas, north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Looks like some pretty big cells are approaching there for the lunchtime hour in that part of Texas. And then going out to the west, Joe, actually looks like a little bit of spotty shower activity in parts of Arizona, around maybe up in the mountains somewhere, and also up in the northern Rockies, seeing a little bit of shower activity there, and up in parts of North Dakota. But severe weather starting to kick off here fairly early in the day. So that enhanced risk that we're seeing is certainly justified.
All right. Well, maybe for my friend who is having fire problems, maybe a locally heavy shower may help out in his particular case. And for us, I actually said, Joe, on Friday that I thought that of the two weekend days, that today probably would have less of a chance of shower activity as opposed to yesterday. Yesterday I said 30%. Today I said less than 20%. So it's a perfect 3H day for all the dads out there. No, not hazy, hot, and humid, but for hot dogs, hamburgers, and hammocks.
Yes, 20% probability of cyclone development from that system offshore, which that's very low, so it's likely not to happen. It'll just move out to the northeast and go goodbye. I just want to take a quick look at the Eastern Pacific. It's a little bit busier with three disturbances that are being watched. Two, the one close to Mexico and the one furthest out, 30% chance of probability. The one in between seems conditions might be a little more favorable, so they've got a little area of 40%. None of this is a threat to land. None of this shows to want to cross Mexico and move into the Gulf of Mexico like we saw earlier in the month. So I think we're in good shape. And just looking at the upper air as we go through this week, just a bit of a change here, Mr. Rayo. This trough is being kicked out. The cutoff low is now well off the New Jersey coast and moved south of Nova Scotia. We've got this rather deep trough that is swinging through the northern plains, which justifies the severe weather outbreak today in the Plain States, and then strengthens a bit as it moves towards the Great Lakes for Monday and Tuesday. And it just kind of gets hung up a bit. And you have to wait until like Friday night or later Friday night when a shortwave trough swings through the Northeast. And that's when I think we'll finally get a reasonable break for a day or so. And then as we move into next week, you can see the ridge in the east starts to build. The jet stream begins to pull northward, north of the Canadian border. Some troughing up in New England, but it does seem to indicate that we'll at least be on the edge of some of hot weather. Particularly as we go into the 4th of July weekend. Nice ridge covering much of the eastern United States and then all the way back into the southwest. So just virtually the whole country under two upper highs in the long range.
Right. And as I said a few moments ago, the way that ridge blows up, it's almost like expanding like a balloon. And amazingly, Joe, it looks like, at least to me, that, yeah, we'll get hot here in the Northeast. But the people up in Ontario and Quebec, Canada, are probably scratching their heads and saying, what did we do to deserve this?
Yeah,
And
but
then
you
they,
know what, Joe? They're going to be at least north of the north of the northernmost part of that ridge. They're going to at least be in a bit of a west to northwest flow. So that's probably going to cap how hot it gets up there.
right.
They don't have the big upper high building like they had last week, where it was over them, pushing the Canadian part of the jet even further north up into Labrador. At least it seems like they'll be on the edge of it,
Right.
rather than being in the heart of it. So that maybe takes 100 degrees off the table. Doesn't say it can't get to upper 80s to near 90.
Well,
Uh,
if you get to a temperature of 32 Celsius or 90 degrees, but you have a dew point temperature somewhere around 12 or 13, as they say in
you
Arizona,
could live
it's a
with it.
dry heat.
Yeah, yeah. I can live with that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at let's real fast because the dads out there want to get out there, and I got to cook breakfast yet. So here we go. So just a real quick look at the GFS today, and of course you see this way how it handles the severe weather out in the plains, then fires it up again for tomorrow. Joe, I think you're right. Probably because of the system that's offshore, there's a little bit of subsidence going on along the immediate coast, so that's probably why the amount of pop-ups today will be fewer than yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, and,
That's
and I think tomorrow also they'll probably be, if they pop up, they'll be well inland. And then late Tuesday, this first front gets close. Looks like there might be some storms into Tuesday evening into eastern PA, eastern Maryland, and then they just sort of fall apart after sunset because of the timing. And then that front just sort of hangs there, and it has to wait until late in the week when you have something a little bit stronger with this upper trough. And while the GFS doesn't seem to be showing much for late Friday with another cold front, I just want to keep an eye on that. because of the upper air, and then and things go according to plan. You get a little bit of a break in the humidity on Saturday until another warm front goes by on Sunday, and then who knows after that? Looks like might get pretty warm Sunday and Monday going into the last days of June. But you know what? That's longer term, and we'll just leave it with
Now, how do you
regards to it
feel
being
now that we're
longer term.
how do you feel now that we're about 16 hours past the solstice, and the very notion that the sun is now migrating southbound, and the days are, I know, you can't really tell at this moment because it's only less than a day after the solstice, but the days are now getting shorter, and
I
we're
just
not going to see those.
I get such a I I love people who put up um I love people who put up that the days are getting shorter today. It's can you just let it you can see they're coming in from the tone of total depression on the first day of summer. The days are getting the daylight is getting shorter. It's like
You know,
stop.
the halfway point of summer is not till about the 6th of August. Now, from here till the 6th of August, we're only going to lose about half an hour's worth of daylight. It's not really until after you get past, let's say, August 5th and 6th, that you suddenly begin to realize, hey, the evening is not as bright as it was, or in the mornings, hey, the mornings are not getting as bright, or it's not getting light as early as it used to. Until then, though, this is the brightest time of the year in terms of sunshine. And in fact, up in parts of Europe, they don't even call this the beginning of summer; they call it midsummer because, indeed, the sun has reached its highest point and now slowly but surely is beginning its decline. By the way, David Letterman, I thought, had the greatest line. He said a lot of people think that the longest day of the year is on the summer solstice.
Right.
This year was June 20th. He says that's not true. He says the longest day of the year is on Christmas Day when you have to spend the whole afternoon with your in-laws. That's the longest day of the
Yeah,
year.
I think there might be several people that would agree with that.
Eh,
Scott Briller pointing out, just going back to uh, the whole thing with what's going on, what went on this week, and what has gone on these last few weeks up in northern New England. Caribou's had 4 days above 90 so far, which is more than New York City, Philadelphia, and Atlanta combined.
yes,
Okay. Caribou's only averages two 90 degree days summer, and Atlanta hasn't hit 90. Well, yet the average first day for 90 is June 1st in Atlanta, I think it did it yesterday, at least at the airport. It may have done it yesterday at the airport, but since most people don't live at airports, away from the airport, Atlanta being very hilly, was definitely a few degrees cooler. And I actually went up north yesterday, up into the mountains. I was up in one spot uh, near north of Dahlonega, Georgia, where I think we were up at about almost 2,000 feet. Might have even been a little bit above that. And
right.
yeah, I mean, there is definitely a difference when you go up into the hills in terms of finding some cool spots. Okay,
You know,
so go
it's not
ahead.
just it's northern Georgia. It's also portions of western South Carolina. I spent a couple of days once back in the 80s in Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I said, this is very lovely. This is not bad for considering that we're supposedly in the deep South. So there are some places of elevation where the weather can be quite nice. Not anywhere near what we often hear about in the southeast, during the summertime. And you're in that area.
Yep. We should mention, by the way, Tim Veltman, Johnny Quest, Anthony on the chat board, Brandon, and of course the chairman, all moderators on the Joe and Joe Weather show. So they make sure everybody behaves themselves, and you usually do. And here are the questions for today, Mr. Rayo. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's see. All right. What is the record for New York City Central Park for the most consecutive days reaching 100 degrees or higher?
Oh my goodness. Well, the only year that sticks out. Now, actually, there are 2 years. There's 1936. I mentioned that in fact it was over 100. The all-time record came on the same day they opened up the Triborough Bridge, and 1966. I don't know, something about sixes there. So I'm going to say 19. I'll say 1966.
Yeah, well, no. What's the number of days?
Oh,
Consecutive
the
number of
record number of
days.
days.
Yeah, consecutive
Well,
number of days of 100 or more.
I don't think there have been more than. I'm tempted to say three, but I don't think it's three. I think two. All right, I'll say three. Three.
Three is the answer. Yes. So you was
All
good. You were good to succumb to that temptation. And how many days has it hit 100 in June?
right. I'll say two.
Also, three in
Okay.
1869,
First year.
1930. What's
First year
that?
of records.
What's that?
1869, the first year they started keeping records.
Yes, 1869, 1932, 1952, and in 1966.
Right. That 66 was a hot one. I still remember that year. That was a really hot summer.
That it was. You got
And
anything for
also,
me?
I'm also showing my age. I'm looking here to see whether or not there is anything for you.
Should be there. Just probably give it a minute to. It should load.
And this is the big now here. If Mrs. Rayo was watching,
And you know she
we
is.
had we had a huge argument last night, and the huge argument was that
Not to be followed by a huge argument after the show for revealing about the huge argument. But go ahead.
well, I feel I need to say. She says, doesn't you get these messages, you get them on through Messenger, and I said yes, but when I get something from Scott, it's not on Messenger. It's something completely different. It's like a message to Joe Rayo, but it's not from Messenger. It's
Oh,
something completely different.
so it's in the inbox that's inside your Facebook weather page.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, no, I understand. Yeah, you have to go. You
and
have
I
to
and I
go and click on inbox on your weather page, and then go look for it in there.
and the thing is, I tell her, I said, sometimes these things appear,
And
and
sometimes they
sometimes they.
don't. Yeah, when you go in that inbox, I've had the same issue where there were. I'll get a message from Facebook telling me there's a message in my inbox, and then I go to look in the inbox and it's not there. And then
Right,
I go look in the inbox about 10 minutes later, and it suddenly pops up. So I
exactly.
totally get that.
And I was telling her that last night. I told her exactly what you just said, and she said, "Well, you're wrong. You're doing something wrong." So
Did
there
you
you
go
go.
back and check the inbox now?
Well, I have something here. It says, "Joe, morning to you and Mrs. Rayo." Haha. A couple of interesting stats. This upside down weather. Caribou has had four. Well, this is just what you just mentioned, Joe.
Okay.
Has had 4 90-degree days more than New York, Philadelphia, and Atlanta combined. Caribou only averages 2.9 degree, two 90-degree days a year. Atlanta's not hit 90 yet. Average first date is June 1st. Caribou may hit 90 both today and tomorrow. This was from a couple of days ago. That would give them six before summer officially starts. Record 11. So that's it. There was no Jeopardy question. It was just a stat, which we've
Okay.
already.
Well, you know what? What if it shows up after we're done? Just save it for Tuesday.
Okay, I will.
And I'm just saying, I want to just quick hello to everybody. Yes, Jason Schaefer, winter is coming. The
Oh,
days are
wait a
getting
minute.
shorter.
Wait a minute.
Did
Hold
it
on.
just pop up?
No, I was looking to the very last message, and that was what I just told you. The last message. However, before he gave me all of the statistics of Caribou, the message before is the Jeopardy question for Sunday morning.
Ah.
Aha! Question one. On June 17, 1981, Central Park recorded a heat index of what? The highest on record.
Were they using the heat index in 1981? Wasn't that the
I don't know. Weren't they?
THI? So
Wasn't
then
it the
it was
THI back then?
when
Yeah.
yeah. So they must have had to recalculate it. So I'll say I'll say 111.
All right. 109. You were too
All
shy of
right,
that.
too shy. I was too over.
Or
Price is
too
Right
high.
rules. It would be bum, 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 bum.
what what was the highest and lowest temperature ever in Georgia?
In Georgia.
Yeah. I guess the state high maximum high temperature.
Well, I'll bet you the state maximum high is probably, I'm going to say 105. And
Actually, it's higher than that.
is
And
it
not only that, it is the city where it happened is a city that we associate with another state where they run horses.
another state where they run horses?
The city is another. The name of the city
Is
is
Lexington,
actually more
Georgia? Louisville, Georgia?
Louisville, Georgia,
What is it? 108?
112,
112. Okay, I'm gonna say the lowest is probably minus minus. I'll say minus 10.
minus 17 in North Floyd County.
Yeah, I would listen. I would believe, considering the elevations that are up north, that and I wasn't even into the highest peaks that are up in North Georgia. I certainly believe it.
The number three is what is the name? Now we all know that as soon as we hear it, we associate it with Perry Mason. But what is the name of the Perry Mason theme song?
Oh, Park Avenue Beat.
Ah, only Joe Chiaffi would know that. I certainly would not have known. And number four, how many episodes did the Perry Mason show have? And
Uh, wasn't it 256 episodes, something like that?
like I said, will be nice to credit if you get within 10. What was your answer?
256.
Well, you missed it by 10, more than 10. The answer was 271.
271. Oh, I knew it was up there. It was 9 seasons.
Right.
So yeah, and when they first started, they probably were doing 35 episodes a season, and then gradually the number decreased as they started doing less and less once they got into the 60s, I suppose. Networks started to cut back on. It used to be they did 30, like the first season of I Love Lucy, they did 39
Right.
episodes.
39 episodes.
Yeah, so it was a lot. These days they only do like 20, 24, maybe at most. Maybe some shows do far less. And in England, in British television, they usually only do like 5 or 6 for a season.
Well, remember when they used to say if you were canceled, you only lasted for 13 weeks?
Yes.
In fact, that's what Tim Conway had like two or three different TV series. He was so great on the Carol Burnett show, and he was on McHale's Navy back in the
Hmm.
early days. But he tried his hand at his own TV series like two or three times. One of them was a terrible show. I remember on Friday nights on Channel 7, Rango.
Oh
And was
God.
just, and so he was so bad, his reputation was so bad. So he got a license plate, a vanity license plate, and on it said 13 weeks.
All right, let's call it a day.
Right.
Happy Father's Day to you. Enjoy. Yep, you got your Father's Day shirt on.
There you go. To all the fathers out there.
And it's everybody on the board who's a dad or is going to be a dad. Happy Father's Day to you, and to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hey, Chris Alley, if you're on, Happy Father's Day to you. I've been said hi to you in a while. Just want to give you a big hug and a big hello. And we'll see you on Tuesday. Okay, I'm on the road tomorrow. Joe and I will be back on Tuesday, but nothing much is going to happen tomorrow. No big surprises. All right. So have a great rest of your Sunday. Bye,
Have a great
everybody.
day, everybody. Happy Father's Day to all of you 60, now 58 and dropping. But thank you all for tuning in on Sunday.